Welcome to the Moon Tribe podcast. I'm Simona, your host. I'm here to inspire heart-led entrepreneurs and conscious leaders to follow their purpose and create a life of freedom, wealth, and magic. Welcome, tribe! I'm so happy to be back after a bit of a break. I'm back from my trip, and this is my first solo episode again since I arrived back here in Portugal. We've been settling in the last week. I'm still a little bit jet lagged, but getting there, and I'm really excited to share with you today some of my insights and some of my lessons from this long and beautiful journey I've been on for nearly 6 weeks. We've been traveling. First of all, this is the first episode now of the podcast in Pisces season. So we are cruising through Pisces season, and our theme for this season is going to be magic. And Pisces is for me really the sign most connected to magic and the mystical and the mysterious. And Pisces is a very beautiful sign, very beautiful energy. We're still going to be in the energy of the sign of Pisces until the spring equinox, 21st of March. It's coming closer as we are really completing the astrological year with the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is the last sign. It's the 12th sign of the Zodiac. So we are coming full circle with Pisces. So there's a sense of completion. There's a sense of closure in the air in Pisces season. Some say Pisces is the Alpha and the Omega. So it's the beginning and it's the ending. It's the completion of the cycle. And for me, Pisces is really this energy of integration, where we have gone through all the phases, through all the stages that each astrological sign represents. Each sign is set to represent a stage in our life, a stage in our evolution as a human being. And now we're coming full circle. We've seen it all. We've done it all. And we are ready to integrate and then to transcend as we complete this cycle and we start the next one. Right? Because life is always about evolution. So we're going to start again fresh, but of course with all the wisdom integrated from this current cycle. I read something very beautiful recently about Pisces, which is that it's said to contain the essence of each of the 11 signs. So it contains the essence of every sign. And only when you come to the stage of Pisces, when you're coming full circle, you can really start to understand the meaning of this entire journey. So Pisces is like the key when we start to understand what was it all about? What is it all about, this human experience? And Pisces as the last sign is said to be the most spiritual sign. So it gives us the spiritual perspective on this human experience. And that is very much that remembering that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we are much more than this, physical body, this physical experience. So people who are born with the sun in Pisces, they are also said to be very open to the spiritual. They are often very old souls and very wise souls in my experience. Pisces energy is about going beyond the 5 senses. We are creating our reality through the information from the 5 senses, right? So what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. But actually, as you probably know, like many animals can perceive so much more or a completely different spectrum than us. And there's all the infrared and ultraviolet, and there's actually so much more information and data available out there that our senses can't even perceive. right? So actually our window of reality is very limited. But of course, then there's also, what some call like a sixth sense, our intuition, that can actually tap into all the information that is out there and can give us very fast, very wise insights suddenly, right? And often our mind can't keep up, and it's just like, whoa, how do I know this? Can I really trust it, etc.? So I'm going to be speaking more about this as part of Pisces season. Our intuition is a very important part of Pisces energy. So Pisces is said to be connected to the higher realms, to other dimensions, to other realms. And in this time, we can more easily connect to it. Also, our dreams are very much connected to the Pisces energy. So paying attention to your dreams, which is, of course, the big question. Maybe this is a dream. Are we in a dream here right now, right? So starting to become aware of the power of our dreams and maybe working with lucid dreaming. I'm about to embark on a journey, on a course about lucid dreaming. Very fascinating to dive into. So Pisces energy has a lot to do with psychic knowing, like telepathy, which actually happens all the time. We can communicate without our phone. We can communicate without talking, just on the level of our minds. And so trusting our intuition, trusting the telepathic information we are getting, and all types of divination are very much connected to Pisces. So next time I will speak a bit more about divination, the tarot, so many things, and also, of course, astrology. We can use it as a way to gain deeper insights that can help us in our life and in our business as well, right? So this is what we are here to look into in the Moon Tribe podcast. Pisces is, for me, if I have to sum up the main theme of Pisces, it's about divine love. So Pisces is really the sign of pure love, and not just the personal love, but bigger love, universal love, love in the knowing that we are actually all one. We are not really separate. So for me, Pisces is this sign of the ocean. It's about the whole ocean and understanding that we are all like a little wave in the ocean. And sometimes we get scared of the other waves, or we feel separate from the other waves. But actually, we are all always connected to the ocean. And as a wave, we are a temporary form that is still always part of the whole and will also return into the whole. And I find that a very beautiful image of this Pisces energy. Knowing, of course, that Pisces is connected to the waters. So Pisces is the last water sign. And for me also, maybe if you remember when I was talking about Aquarius is said to be an air sign, but I actually believe it's actually ether. It's not air anymore. It's the fifth element, which is ether or akasha. And for me, Pisces is the same. It's actually not really water anymore. It's not so dense. It's more like a steam, like a fog, and actually more connected to ether, to the fifth element. And this fogginess can also sometimes be a little bit part of the Piscean vibe. It's all a little bit more foggy, more dreamy. There's this dreamy energy. Shadow sides of the sign of Pisces can be connected to fear, worries, a lot of victim consciousness. So especially Pisceans have that often, and we all need to be careful that this can be a shadow expression of Pisces to cast ourselves as a victim. Another shadow side of Pisces, and also connected with Neptune, is addictions, because Pisces is about alternate states of consciousness. So sometimes, drinking too much or taking drugs or whatever can take us into another state of consciousness, and that can also then be connected to this addiction, wanting to escape. So escapism can be part of Pisces. But in the light expression, it's about higher states of consciousness and being more connected to the divine and to divine love. So this is very much the theme that we are flowing with these waters of Pisces. Pisces is ruled by the planet Neptune, which is also the god of the ocean. In the Greek mythology, it was Poseidon. So I'm sure you've seen images of Poseidon on Neptune holding this triceps, the god of the oceans. So we are swimming in these waters of Pisces, and it is really a good time to work with a few themes that are very much connected to Pisces. I will share with you now a little bit more, as they also came up in my trip, because obviously in my trip we started in Aquarius season, but then we moved into Pisces season, and some of the big themes of Pisces, which is around love, I was sharing also a lot about surrender. Surrender is a big theme of Pisces, and connecting to higher states of consciousness. So from here, I want to share with you some insights, some reflections about my trip. We've been away since second half of January until now, beginning of March. And first traveling 1 week in the US, and then 3 weeks in Mexico and 3 weeks in Guatemala. And it was my first long trip since 2019, when I was in Copangan still, until the beginning of 2020. For some reason, I had this feeling I have to do a big trip. I didn't know why, but then what happened in 2020, I understood. This was a last chance in a while to do this beautiful trip. And I haven't done such a big trip in a while, such a long trip. But in the past, I have done it, especially back in the days when I used to live in London and I was still working in the agencies, as I shared in the earlier episodes. If you want to listen to that, I used to go traveling every year. And especially in this time, January, February, which is my birthday, like my own solar cycle, it always felt like a really good time for me just to have this reset. And I used to go to India, I used to go to Bali, and I always took this time. And also, it wasn't just like a holiday. Sometimes I was also really working on my business. I was working in different co-working spaces, and I was starting to dip my toes into another way of living, especially as a new entrepreneur. I was very inspired by maybe I can work wherever I want in the world. Maybe I don't have to sit in this office all the time where I feel really restricted. Actually, I'm much more inspired when I have all these new impressions, and traveling for me really opens me up and expands my horizons. So that was the first kind of taste that I got that has really taken me down more and more into this road as an entrepreneur. And if you are on my newsletter, if you're getting my emails, or maybe I mentioned it on a previous podcast as well, for 2024, when we started this year, 2024, my word for this year that I wanted to focus on in 2024 is freedom. And it felt very beautiful to start into the year with this trip. And it really gave me this deep sense of freedom that was really like a soul desire. I just really, my soul was calling to this adventure and exploration. And of course, my Venus is in Sagittarius. So this is really something that fills me up very deeply. And also, so beautiful to see that at this point in my business is really location independent, which was one of the non-negotiables for my business as I started creating my business. When I was still now living in Amsterdam in the last years, I was of course teaching yoga there physically, and I could take time off. But now it was actually wonderful to experience how, I was working with my clients from Mexico, from Guatemala. And of course, I was so inspired. So they were getting all the goodness directly, all the inspiration. So they were also, of course, benefiting while I was able to live location independently and do this trip. And it wasn't just a holiday. I also didn't want to do a 2-month holiday. I don't need a 2-month holiday. But, just like to be able to create this life. So it doesn't have to be so separate between work and holiday, but actually, how do I want to live my life? And I'm absolutely fine to work a few hours in the morning and then go to the beach, or, just kind of be more organic when you're traveling. So it also gave me a deeper sense of that freedom is really an inner state of possibilities, of choosing how you want to live your life. And actually, for me, also really feeling alive. It gave me this feeling of being really alive. And that maybe brings us now to the lessons that, and of course, there were so many lessons and so many insights. So actually, for me, it's also beautiful to share this with you now to get a little bit of a reflection about it. So one big takeaway and lesson has been, there's been a huge reset. And I feel every long trip does that for me. And if you've been lucky to do longer travels, like not just 2 weeks, but 3 weeks, a month or longer, I find that often it takes me nearly 2 weeks just to really unwind, to completely unwind. So my system is just like in a rest mode. Then I can open up to so much more that wasn't really available before. And I'm someone, I really also love being at home. So I wouldn't want to travel all the time. That's not for me personally aligned. But being able to do a long trip or travel regularly, that feels really fun and exciting. And the thing is, when I'm at home, and maybe you recognize it, especially if you haven't traveled for a while, I really get into my routines and I do my things, and I have also certain practices that are supporting me and that are fun. You know, we go running, I do my journaling, I do my yoga, like lots of things. But then it can also become repetitive at some point, especially if I haven't traveled for a while, if I haven't left this environment, it starts to become more like routine. Even though I love doing these things, but it's just like you're in the same habit. So what a big trip does for me, it's a real reset. It takes me out of my comfort zone, of course. You're in a new environment. You break out of your patterns. Often you're actually not really able to do them. For example, you know, the yoga practice in between the hotels and trips, like squeezing it in, but it's definitely not in the same pattern like it was before. And then I also notice myself, I'm more open to meet new people, to explore new experiences. So it really does something to my entire energy. And then there's another gift. So there's this gift when you go, this opening. And the second gift is actually also coming home, which I'm experiencing now because there's so much joy in coming home again, especially if you live somewhere that you love. I feel so grateful to be here. And we're here in this beautiful countryside in Portugal. And we went running, and literally it's just in front of the house. We have this amazing route through the forest. And I just feel so grateful and so happy to be here again. I feel so at home and settling in. And so you can appreciate where you live with fresh eyes again. So I always find that is actually really beautiful. And sometimes you need to get out to be able to come back home with this new feeling. So that's the first lesson. Second lesson I wrote down, it's what I already mentioned earlier, is about really slowing down, doing less, becoming more present. And I was in a time, I wouldn't say it was kind of stressful, but I was doing quite a lot as I was just launching this podcast. It was in the end of December, beginning of January. I also launched my group program. So there were quite a lot of moving parts as I was preparing for the trip. So it was quite a busy time. And it felt really good to allow myself just to slow down. Also, looking back, I feel it was also kind of needed to have this reset and this slowing down, as 2023 was quite a big year and it was also challenging in many ways. And as you might know, we made our big move. So we left Amsterdam to come to Portugal. So there was also, of course, moving to another country. It's a big thing if you've ever done it. So it just felt good to give this time to slow down and rest. And then becoming more present, right? Becoming more in the moment, like waking up and thinking like, okay, what do I want to do today? And just going with the flow and reading and being in nature and just doing nothing, just looking at the birds, listening to the waves. So for me, that was really, really beautiful to come into the state. As I mentioned, we spent 3 weeks in Mexico in a beautiful place called Mazunte in Oaxaca. Oaxaca is a state in Mexico on the Pacific coast. I've been in Oaxaca before, in Puerto Escondido, and in Oaxaca city, which is amazing. I love Mexico. Luckily, I speak some Spanish, and yeah, I really feel connected to the country, to the people. And yeah, Mazunte was really such a beautiful place, like directly by the ocean, by the Pacific Ocean, and a wonderful coast. And I just love being by the sea and being by the ocean. So that's already something that's very nourishing for me and for my soul. So we went every day to the beach. Actually, also, luckily, Dennis, he's such a water creature. He loves swimming and going to the ocean all the time. And for me as well. And it also inspired me to go to the sea more often, because even just swimming and washing it all off, it feels like such a release. And also every time when you're feeling maybe a little bit out of balance, or you're getting some emotions that are not really helpful, the salt water really does something to cleanse us in a deep way. So the ocean, the power of the ocean, is something I'm going to come back to. Well, as I said, it was not a holiday, but it's actually a new way of life that I'm, exploring. And kind of also an old way of life in a new way. I've done this before, but now, how to explore this. And the beauty is, being an entrepreneur, we get to make it up, right? You get to choose. And this is something I really work with and support my clients with as well. When you're starting your business, actually start with, how do you want to live your life? What is your ideal lifestyle? What do you want? Do you want to be based in one location? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be location independent? Do you want to have a small team? Do you want to have a big team? How many people do you want to work with? There's so many questions, but it all comes back to, what do you want and what do you want in your life? So that's a good thing also as an entrepreneur, just to take a moment and see, is your business serving you? Are you able to live the life you want? Because for me, that's really why I'm in business. And it also gets to change over time, because maybe our desires or our needs will change over time, right? But your business needs to serve you. What was beautiful is to tap into this, as I said, less doing and more just being, and actually manifesting just through my energy, just by being, by enjoying, by being in a high vibration, doing practices, being by the ocean. And so, for example, amazing dream clients came into my world while I was in Mexico. I was not actively promoting or doing something, but it was just easy. It was a perfect match. I didn't have to work hard or do anything. And I was consciously also observing myself. Do I have a story that it has to be hard work? And actually it doesn't. Can I let it be easy? And this is very much something I'm excited about, and that I also want to really encourage my clients, because many of us have this story of, we have to work hard and we have to be on it and we have to do all these things. And it's actually not true. If we believe it, then it is true. So it's all a question of really being very aware of our energy and of our beliefs. This was the second bigger lesson that I'm taking away. And another really beautiful lesson that actually also reminded me of one of the earlier episodes I did, and you can go back to watch it. It was, I think, called Why I Created Moon Tribe. And this became really alive now as well on the trip. And starting from Mazunte, it was about this feeling to connect with our tribe. And I was really reminded again why I created Moon Tribe, which is for me a conscious movement. It's bringing our conscious community together and inspiring, empowering conscious leaders. So we lead into this new world together, and we lead into this new paradigm together, and we step in our power, and we are connected, and we're celebrating our connection. We're celebrating our community. And this whole concept of Moon Tribe was also really born from all my travels, because I was lucky to travel in so many countries to conscious festivals and yoga retreats and workshops. And I did so many things all over the world. And I felt wherever I went, when I connected to the spiritual community, they were my people. They were my tribe. I felt we understand each other. It was easy. We are like speaking the same language. We're interested in the same things. And often they are like free spirits who, create their life in a very daring and bold way. And often we have felt that we don't really fit into the mainstream, into the narrative of how society tells us this is the only way how you have to live. So I really felt connected with this tribe. There were some beautiful moments of ecstatic dance, which is big in Mazunte, and also in San Marcos, where we were in Guatemala. So ecstatic dance is such a beautiful practice, and it's like a ritual doing this dance together, right? So we did ecstatic dance at an amazing beach at sunset. That was one of the most beautiful locations I've ever experienced it. Then they have this called Ecstatic Sundays in Mazunte, where there were like just beautiful people from all over the world coming together and dancing and really feeling how this creates this sense of community. And we did certain practices together, and we had beautiful cacao ceremonies. So really working with the cacao came strongly also back into my life in these last weeks. There were moments at another event when we were just at night around the fire and chanting together and singing around the fire. And it felt really like this sense of tribe, this sense of, humans used to do this since the beginning, that we were around the fire, sitting together and singing. And it just felt like this universal connection with people from all over the world who were coming together there. And it's like this shared humanity. And I feel it's also really like making me think about, what are these values? What are these things we want to cultivate moving forward as humanity? And especially as we are now in this shift, what are the values we want to create for a new earth? And how can we live together in a different way than we have been, with so many things are not working and making us feel more separate instead of more connected? So that there were some really beautiful moments around this, of this connection. And it also brings me to the next insight. And that is a beautiful one, which is, of course, something I've been working with already for a long time. And I've been doing this, but it felt like a rebirthing, a reconnection in a way. And that is about the power of ceremony. I've been working with ritual and with ceremony for a long time. And I feel rituals are something very, very important and very powerful in life. And they really can help us in so many ways. And bringing them back to work with them more consciously is very helpful. For me, a ritual is really creating a sacred space, bringing the sacred into our mundane daily life. If we're not connected to the sacred, then our life can become very mundane, all the things, all the to-dos, all the daily activities. But if we're not connected to a bigger picture, to a higher perspective, it can feel a little bit stale, a little bit empty, at least for me. So connecting to the sacred, creating a ritual that connects us to what is sacred, can be very empowering and nourishing. And especially when we are doing ritual together, right? And obviously humans have been doing this from the beginning of time. And there are also still many rituals that are also in the common society, maybe not so consciously used. But if we're using ritual more consciously, it's very powerful. So for example, I'm also hosting once a month a new moon circle as part of my community Moon Tribe Circle. And it is such a beautiful ritual where we come together once a month and we share and we explore the theme together, and then we set our intentions together for the coming lunar cycle. And it's very powerful to do that. There are so many layers of it. But That's to the power of ceremony, the power of ritual. And of course, setting an intention is very important when we are working with ritual. Coming together in a sacred space. Yeah, that's why often, if you go to an ecstatic dance, if you're going to a cacao ceremony, it's like letting go of this chit chat, letting go of all the daily blah, 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 moving more into silence, moving more into inner space, moving more into a connection, lighting the fire, like create a sacred altar, etc. So that helps us. And then connecting with spirit, calling in spirit with our intention to be guided. So we are opening ourselves up for the divine to enter and to support us in our lives. And of course, the beauty was on this trip, we also connected a lot with the ancient wisdom from the Maya culture. And of course, in Mexico, there's so much richness of the different cultures that were there, from the Maya to I think, Mexicas and Toltec and Aztecs. And there were so many traditions. And we also visited the ancient city of Teotihuacan, which was actually later, but where the tribes were from all over the Americas, and it was not called Americas at this time, but the Nawal. They were all trading, they were all connecting, and they all had their different spirituality, but they were so advanced in so many ways. And they were very advanced spiritually, in my opinion. I feel we have so much to learn from them. They were very advanced. The architecture, of course, was built also. So we went to see the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. And the Pyramid of the Moon also has around it, I think, 8 smaller pyramids, one for each of the main phases of the moon. And then the Pyramid of the Sun is built in a certain way, so it aligns directly. First of all, it aligns with, I think, west, and then also to align with the summer solstice sunlight. So how did they know this? How did they build this huge pyramid in exactly this angle to know exactly how the light is falling in? So there's all the mystery and the magic, what I'm talking about with Pisces. And I believe that they were in a very high consciousness, and they had a lot of knowledge about astrology, astronomy, mathematics, spirituality, etc. So a lot to talk about the Mayan culture and the cultures of the Mesoamericas before the Europeans invaded was very, very rich. And of course, what they have always been doing is also working with sacred plants. So I mentioned already the cacao. So we've been doing cacao ceremonies, very beautiful cacao ceremonies, to really connecting with the spirit of the cacao. And the plants are grown with a certain reverence. And the cacao is not just like a hot chocolate that we might drink, but it's like a pure from the cacao that is grown in a certain way. Has a little bit of a bitter taste as well, and it's said to be really a heart medicine. So it has a very light, stimulating effect, a little bit like a coffee, which is also, of course, a sacred plant that we are using a little bit out of control nowadays. But it has a little bit of the stimulating quality. And also cacao very good to replace if you want to drink less coffee, because it's also waking you up. And it has a heart opening effect. So you're feeling like a certain warmth. It's connecting us to love. So it's a very beautiful medicine. And I also really feel inspired to work with it more and to host cacao ceremonies here in Portugal. So we worked with the cacao medicine, especially also when we went to Guatemala, because there is a lot of cacao culture, and it was actually an important part of the Mayan tradition. What I heard as well, which is so beautiful, is that the cacao was actually used as the currency. So to pay, you would pay with the cacao beans. That's how valuable it was. So it's very, very beautiful. So we worked with the cacao, and there's a rich tradition and some beautiful places where they are really sharing the authentic cacao ceremonies. And then we also, and actually we manifested this together also with Dennis to work also with the grandfather medicine, which is the peyote. And peyote is, of course, from a cactus that has been used a lot especially in the northern parts of what is now Mexico, and also in the southern parts of the US. That was all the tribes were together. So different tribes, as far as I understand, I think Lakota and Cherokee and these different tribes, they were all also working with the medicine of peyote. And so these plant medicines, they are said to be great teachers, and they are very, very sacred. And it's very important. I mean, I have only a little bit of experience also with the grandmother with ayahuasca, and I did one ceremony with peyote before, which is already a long time ago. It feels like a different life. When I was back in London, I did a first peyote ceremony. I would say if you have done a little bit of inner work and you're feeling balanced enough and stable enough, it is a very powerful experience. And it's important to really find a very, very good guide and very good healer to really hold space, whatever is happening. You need to be able to trust that person 100%, because it's a very, very deep experience. And so luckily it all manifested in a beautiful way. And we actually found a wonderful healer, a curandera from the north of Mexico, who has grown up with learning about the medicine. It's a very deep and very powerful path, and it's a very sacred lineage. And so we were invited to be part of a ceremony which was absolutely stunning. It was then in Guatemala, in Lake Atitlan, and we were sitting directly by the lake in a circle, and it was around 30 people coming together. And in the peyote ceremony, you're meant to stay awake the whole night. So you're meant to not go to sleep, but sit with the medicine. And there are songs being shared, and you're around the sacred fire. And you are just receiving the medicine, depending also on your intention, the healing from the medicine. And there's a lot of healing, and it is a lot of old things that we can release also in a ceremony like this. It can be our own old patterns that maybe have been holding us back. It can be karmic patterns from past lifetimes that are still in our system. It can be ancestral things, which all of us also have in our system from our ancestors. So they are not even ours, and still they might be affecting our life. So I feel a healing on so many levels is very important to start to free ourselves from any old ties and old patterns like this. And for me personally, this has been a powerful path to work with these medicines. I've only done it a few times, but it has been very powerful. And so there was a lot of beautiful teaching, beautiful heart opening, beautiful remembering. And yeah, it's a very certain state that you're in. And it was shared in an authentic way. So that's been a very beautiful gift we received. I would say definitely one of the highlights of this trip. And then taking us to the next insight and next lesson from this trip. And there was a big theme very much connected to the Piscean energy, which is surrender. So there was a big theme of surrender coming in. And especially when we started our trip in Guatemala and when we went to the Lake Atitlan. So Lake Atitlan is a very beautiful lake. It's a volcanic lake in Guatemala. I heard about it for many years on different trips, and people recommended that it's such a powerful place, such a powerful vortex, especially one village around the lake, San Marcos, attracts a lot of spiritual community, and there's ecstatic dance and music and just a lot going on. So I was very excited to come there. And it actually turned out to be very challenging there. And I was like, wow, nobody told me this. What's going on? So both Dennis and me, we experienced some challenging weeks. And it was really strange for me. So I can only speak now for my own experience, of course, not for everyone else's. But I really struggled to find my flow in this place. So usually when I travel somewhere after a few days or at least a week, I kind of know my favorite places. I know what to do. I know where to go and meet some people. And I feel like I'm in a good flow to move there. And for some reason, this experience was different. It felt like I couldn't find my flow. And we had quite many strange experiences where the doors were closed. We wanted to do something, it wasn't happening. We were going somewhere. So, for example, we tried to go to some yoga classes, and there were different places that looked like beautiful centers. So, the first one, I was going there and I just had to get some cash out because in many of the places there you cannot pay with card. So, very mundane things. You need to get cash to pay for the class. I came there. There's only one ATM there. The ATM wasn't working. I was on the way to class. I was like, no, I don't have enough cash now to pay for the class. What to do? So I tried going there anyway. Then the class had already started. And in the end, I just surrendered. I was like, I think I have to skip it. I was really looking forward to this yoga class. And it was a beautiful place, but I was like, okay, it wasn't meant to be. So we tried again on the next day. We got up really early in the morning. The class started at 7:30. It was supposed to be in a beautiful center. We had a tuk-tuk, that picked us up, drove us there, dropped us off somewhere. The center was kind of up on the hill. And I was like, I'm sure there's going to be signs to find it. It looks like a beautiful kind of boutique yoga center. I'm sure we can find it. That was my assumption. We arrived there and there were no signs. And there were quite many different paths. So we ended up getting completely lost. Again, being late for this class, we couldn't make it. Even though we arrived early, we couldn't make it. Then the class had already started. We were kind of then still joining. And then the class was just, I couldn't do it. I really, it was not what was in the description. And the teacher was a very new teacher, like bless her. But I just was like, no, this is so not what I needed now. And I had a lot of resistance coming up. And I was like, why is nothing working? So it was really challenging. And so then we left this place, and probably, when you're traveling, some practices, and for me also yoga physically, that really keeps me in my center, keeps me feeling good in my body, keeps me calmer. I traveled a lot in India, and I think the only thing that kept me sane is my daily yoga practice in the morning. If you do your 2-hour strong practice, whatever the day throws at you, you're good. So I know that this really works for me. But there we couldn't make it work. And then we did a third time. And again, we couldn't find the place. That never happened in my life. And so it was just like, what to do? Surrender. And then both Dennis and I, we were getting upset. We were getting frustrated. Then we were like grumpy with each other. So it was also in our relationship. We were like, okay, this place, nothing is working. So it was challenging. It was challenging. Of course, another thing is that there was no electricity. So I think for 3 or 4 days, the electricity wasn't working first in the first week. And that's regularly happening there, that they have electricity power cuts, which can happen in many countries, of course. And if you're prepared for it, you can also work around it. I think looking back, I would have bought better a SIM card for my phone where I can have internet regardless, because like this, it was a little bit then complicated. I had client calls scheduled and then we couldn't go ahead. So it was just a lot of, working around some kind of obstacles. I was like, okay, how to do it? How do we navigate it here? So it just felt really difficult. No electricity, no Wi-Fi, ATMs not working, very hit and miss, right? So I was a bit like, what is it? I was like, okay, I can surrender. I surrender. But what is it? What is this energy here? Am I going crazy? Like, we're in such a beautiful place. I started speaking with some people about it, and some were saying, so how are you liking it? Are you enjoying it? Da, da, da. And I'm like, I'm actually having a very mixed experience. And, that is my personal experience. Other people had a very different experience. But I also heard quite many said, yeah, it is an intense place. It is really a vortex, but it is quite an intense place. And you really have to do your practices here. And I said, yeah, but I've traveled in India. I've traveled in Thailand. I've traveled in so many places. I never experienced something like this. And there was also a kind of a heaviness. I think there was kind of a heaviness in people and also in the local community. I really couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, what is it? I'm feeling strange. Dennis experienced the same. Generally, we are quite stable and things don't feel so hard. So on the very last day, I had a conversation with a beautiful friend who I actually reconnected with there. And she kind of gave me the piece of the puzzle, which was incredible. And I'm also really glad I was digging into it. And it, for me, also was kind of a lesson to really trust my intuition. Something was wrong. There was something going on there in the energy. And I'm not surprised now, that I think there's a lot of healing needed in this area, because what turned out is, and I have to say, I don't know why I actually haven't researched that better, and it feels a little bit, next time I should really do my homework and research better to where I'm going. So I was kind of a little bit blue-eyed going into it. Turned out that, as you might know, and I've actually heard about it, that Guatemala had a very difficult civil war for many, many years. And it was only in the late 70s and early 80s. So it was a very cruel civil war. And especially there were targeted attacks against the Mayan people. So there was actually a genocide happening around this lake against Mayan population. And you can look it up online. It's absolutely terrible what happened there, and very, very sad. And this happened only 30, 40 years ago. So many of the people have still experienced this. There were literally massacres that happened there. And I had no idea. And so, learning this on the last day from our friend, and then we both researched it. We were like, wow, oh my God, we had no idea. And no wonder that the energy is a little bit messed up around here. No wonder. There's still a huge process of healing, and there's still a huge process of finding peace again with everything that happened. And so many people are drawn to this area from all over the world. And I feel there's also like a collective effort of healing this beautiful place, because the lake is also really a power center, and I do believe that it's a very powerful vortex. But right now the energy still needs to be healed, and it's a little bit kind of distorted. It's not the same. I feel it's not the same like it used to be. This lake was a very powerful and important place for the Mayan culture, but obviously this happened in the recent history. So just also to bring it to your awareness, I wish someone would have shared this with me, and I wish I would have done my research before going there. But this is good to know for going there. And I feel this is just connected with our whole collective healing, right? That is like, there's so much healing as a humanity that is needed for many terrible things that have been happening, and wars and violence and cruelty against each other. So what we really need is the medicine. Pisces is the sign of healing and the sign of medicine and the sign of remembering that we are connected and that we are love. And so coming back to this ultimate healing, I feel that is a really important part of the insights and of the lessons. I didn't realize it, but actually this place is a place where you burn a lot of karma in a short time. And I think we did in 3 weeks. We were like, whoa. And we did the ceremony there. So there was definitely a lot happening. And I do feel lighter, and I do feel like also deeply transformed. It was not an easy deep dive, but when you do the work, it works as well. So wherever you are right now in your journey, if it's in a more difficult place, just remember, if you're doing the work, you're going to come out on the other side and you're going to feel the relief, you're going to feel the lightness, because I think there's a lot also collectively that we're doing at the moment, a lot of collective healing. The last lesson from this trip, the 6th lesson that I want to bring, is about honoring the sacred waters. And of course, we were connected to the waters in both of the main places where we were. And going back to the Lake Atitlan, this is also the deepest lake in Central America. It was formed through a volcanic crater. It's very deep. And of course, it holds a lot of water. And as you might know, water holds a lot of information. And also it's not flowing water, so it's not refreshed, but it's a very deep water. So there's a lot of healing needed for the lake. And remembering that the waters are keeping wisdom and are keeping information. And they are also great transmitters of vibration. Obviously, the water. We have the waters inside of us, and we have the waters on the planet Earth. So really honoring the waters around us, blessing the waters, sending love into the waters, sending healing into the waters, into our own waters, and into the waters of the world. I feel it's very, very important. And of course, especially highlighted in the Pisces season. A beautiful gift we received as well from the waters was connecting to some very special beings from the ocean. And that was in the beginning of our journey. Dennis had his birthday, and on his birthday, we actually went out into the ocean and we did a trip to see the whales. And I saw for the first time whales in my life, and it was an absolutely magnificent experience. Especially we were so lucky because, to be honest, I didn't really expect much. I had no idea if they're going to come out, or maybe you just see a little bit, and I would already have been over the moon. But what happened on that day, that was a very special morning. That's actually unusual. What happened with us was we went out early in the morning, just after sunrise. And we came to the spot where the whales are migrating, and they are there in this area in the coast of Mexico. And it was like a party. They were jumping out, like far out, like on these beautiful pictures you might have seen. They were coming out far, they were jumping. Several of them. There was a whole group jumping out. I've never seen anything like that. And you can really feel the energy. You can feel the wisdom of these beings, of these underwater beings. And just also the mystery of, the underwater worlds. There's so much going on there, which we don't even see or often aren't so connected with. Then we drove a little bit further, and then we met with the dolphins. And I've seen dolphins in my life. I've seen a few coming with the boat, but I've never seen so many dolphins. There were like hundreds of dolphins swimming with us, jumping, dancing. They are such joyful beings. You can feel the joy and the playfulness, and they are such high frequency beings. It was spectacular. So that has been a huge gift, beautiful birthday gift for Dennis, also beautiful gift for me. And just to really remind us of the magic, of the mystery of the oceans, and to honoring the water, and just being so grateful for the beautiful waters on the planet, the oceans, and also all the underwater beings. So with this, these are my insights and lessons from my trip. It's been a little bit of a longer episode, but of course there's so much to share. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some insights. Enjoy Pisces season. It's a beautiful time. Remember to honor the waters. One more thing, if you wanna have a look at some pictures and videos from our trip, I posted on Instagram, so come over there to have a look. I also posted about the whales, so you can look at it. Send me a message how you enjoyed this episode. I would love to hear from you. And with this, I'm sending you so much love. Until next week. Thank you for listening to the Moon Tribe podcast with me, Simona Shimanovic. I'd love to share my free abundance meditation with you. Go to simonashimanovic.com and join the tribe.